Hello everybody, Dokkan Assets here. Today we are back with another Dokkan Battle animation analysis video. Ladies and gentlemen, my boy Goku Black has been receiving slander left and right. Well deserved, because unfortunately he's not that good. But in light of the boy Int Goku Black getting his EZA, and as well discussing a lot on today's episode of the Slot 1 Super Podcast that I am a member of, discussing the boy Int Goku Black. In today's episode, we were talking about how his animations are still pretty fun to take a look at, and that kind of inspired me to do this video. So definitely check out the podcast. If you have not. I'm definitely going to throw a link in the description of that one. Obviously, that's me down there. Wow. But after talking about it on the podcast, I wanted to do an animation analysis video on this guy because I don't think I ever have. If I have and I'm making this video and I upload it, I'm going to look like a whole fool. But oh well, we're already this deep in the video. It's going up regardless. Now, as per usual, when it comes to older units, of course, we cannot take a look at this guy with the same lens that we can a unit that has come out in 2023. And as you guys know, I like to compare this guy to the first unit that I feel really had quote-unquote modern Dokkan Battle animations. Of course, that being the boy AGL Metal Cooler. Now, as you can see here on JP, this bad boy came out on October 31st. Wow, Halloween, interesting. On October 31st of 2018. And if we take a look on JP, he actually came out a month-ish, just about, yeah, later on the 29th of November. Funny enough, he actually came out in the same month on Global. That's kind of interesting. I did not realize that. So what that means is that this guy's animations should be pretty much on par with this boy right here, Metal Cooler. And we will not only be seeing that today, but we'll actually be taking a look at all of his animations. And as per usual, always like to watch these one time through before we go ahead and take a look at the slow-mo. Now, before I get into my usual spiel, I do have to mention that actually the SSR for Int Goku Black has his own super attack. This is one of those rare units where the SSR actually has a different SA as opposed to just kind of being a dumbed down version of the regular SA of the card, or like in the LR's case, usually it's like their 12 key but with a little bit less stuff going on. And it is pretty cool that the SSR actually has its own SA, right? Obviously, a little bit of it is kind of similar here, but obviously there is a little bit of a difference when it comes to the super attack. I guess you could almost say it's kind of like just the first half is the SSR, but the SSR does that funny little zoom bit in the beginning that is a little bit different. Now, as well, too, of course, I got to shout out to the boy DBZ World, Dokkan World, for always holding it down whenever I need a really old Dokkan essay. The man has it on his channel for me to take a look at. Of course, a link to this video and a link to his channel, as well as the Dokkan World channel, too, will be in the description below. So thank you to my boy for always letting me use these videos for my animation analysis videos and stuff like that. As well, I always like to mention I'm by no means an animation professional, but I look at Dokkan assets all the time, and I look at these SAOs all the time, and I think I know what makes a pretty good SA. Now, we're going to take a look at all this guy's animations. Obviously, he has the SSR, the base form, and then the Rose super attack. And honestly, for a unit that came out in 2018, right? Yeah, 2018. I am fairly impressed with this guy's animations, to be 100% honest with you. He was actually pretty good. I was actually very impressed with this guy when he first released. So it'll be interesting to see once we go through and dissect this, how we're feeling about it today. But so far, I think my boy is kind of cooking. So first of all, we obviously start off the SSR super attack with this very, very nice asset of Goku Black holding up his fist towards the camera. And ironically enough, this video is going to go up before the support memory video, which is going to go up tomorrow. But I did a animation analysis video. Here's a little teaser for all of you who are watching this video on the brand new 3 support memories, right? And in the 2 Zamasus one, they actually do something similar to this, where they have an object closer to the camera and it's a little bit blurry, and then in the background, or well, I guess technically that would be the background. Yeah, they have the more like clear asset that is what your eyes are supposed to be focusing on. So that is really cool to see. All the way back then, when they were making these more modern essays, they were still cooking with this type of thing. I feel like we do see this occasionally in modern essays, but it is always really cool to see in some of this old stuff to see how they kind of did it back then, and then adapt it into what would then become like modern essays, right? So obviously we have Goku Black standing there with his fist towards the screen, which is pretty cool. We have this awesome shot. This is such an iconic shot from this essay, right? This whole sequence of Goku Black obviously having Goku's kind of like body form, and as well super cool that it's very reminiscent of the SSR art, right? I mean, obviously that's what the SSR art is referencing. It's referencing the essay where they kind of have this little shot of Goku here, but like obviously seeing his gi kind of cut in through the different effects, that is super well done in this animation. They actually do it crazily enough, like in kind of like the what we would consider the sprite, basically, right? Or kind of the equivalent of that in this essay, right? You can see Goku's leg there, and then obviously kind of pans over and shows the entirety of Goku. Yo, Goku got the new the new Goku Black Future 6s on. I was trying to make a Nike joke. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna shoot. Anyway, obviously kind of panning over him like this, which is really cool, with a little bit of orange, right? And then obviously as it cuts away, we have this section where when it's super zoomed up, we have the nice little cut here. I never realized as well with this essay until taking a look at it like this, that this isn't supposed to be like directly Goku Black's top half and bottom half. Like, this isn't one essay. This isn't one asset that's on the screen. They're actually doing something very anime-esque, where sometimes when they want to show like two things happening at once on a character, or just like in general in an anime, they'll kind of cut the screen in half, whether that be horizontal or diagonal, and then they'll show the two things happening at the same time. That is actually what is happening in this essay, because this is a little bit of a zoomed out look on the bottom half of Goku Black, and this is obviously, you know, a little bit of a different angle, because you can see that it doesn't connect, right? And there's this black line in the middle. That is really interesting. I don't think I've ever noticed that in all the times that I've taken a look at this essay. That is really cool to see, though, honestly. And I wonder why they haven't done stuff like that in the future. I mean, I guess it must be because they're referencing the, you know, anime is, of course, like the reference material for this, and that's probably what the anime did for the scene. But, you know, it's still interesting that they've never done that, because surely you would think that that would happen at another point in DBZ. But yeah, then we obviously get it continuing here with this very cool shot of the top half of Goku Black, where obviously you can see Goku kind of pouring through the little bit of the smoke and black smoke effect. Very, very cool. I love this essay. I think that they did an absolute good job with, or an absolute great job with this, right? The first time I saw it, I remember I was super impressed. So it's really, really cool to see. It's a nice little introduction to the essay as well. So obviously then we cut to this same shot of Goku Black. That's kind of funny, actually, that it's the same shot of Goku Black, and then it cuts to the card art, and then it's right back to that same shot. That's kind of funny. So we do have a little bit of a fade here, but obviously, again, this is an older essay, so I'm taking this with a grain of salt, right? But you can see that they fade out and actually kind of stretch Goku Black a little bit here, right? He's kind of stable here, but then they kind of twist his asset a little bit right here, right? You can see he kind of gets a little warped there as they're kind of transforming him into the other one, which makes sense because obviously they're trying to make the transition look a little bit cleaner until they go into this pose, which is a lot more reminiscent of like a Dokkan sprite. By the way, shout out to Fizz Goku Black. That is literally his exact pose right there. But obviously we have a little bit of the energy blast in Goku Black's hand. A really quick little throw. Obviously, again, this is an older essay, but I think for this it makes sense to just kind of have the asset change like that, because obviously it's, you know, supposed to be a quick blast. The blast itself looks actually pretty good with the way that it's animated in the movement on it, as well as the kind of little bit of air effects, right, that kind of take place around the blast as well. I think they did a very good job with that for, you know, how old this essay is. The asset looks really good for that. I like the rocks obviously breaking up kind of on the way there, right? The smoke cloud shooting up in the direction of the blast. And then, of course, you get a little bit of a POV, you are the blast, before it bounces into the enemy and hits them away, before we then get a little bit of a dust cloud, followed by a different angle with a dust cloud here, which both look really good. And I really like this angle, actually. I like whenever they do this, where they kind of have, like, you are the blast sort of perspective here. You can kind of see it peeking in at the bottom there as this animation plays out, right? You can see it right there, but still, it kind of feels like, you know, you're hurtling towards the enemy. So I really, really like it when they do that. Okay, so for the card for the TUR, right, we obviously have the TUR super attack for Goku Black. with him, we do get the same introduction, actually. It is exactly the same in terms of the animation all the way up until this point, right? Where then the card art shows on the screen. But obviously, in this version of the essay, the card art does not appear here. It's interesting. I wonder if they literally just, like, copy and pasted the assets from, I mean, whichever one they made first, I guess, the TUR or the SSR, and then slapped it into the other one's animations. And then, obviously, you know, they kind of have, because this feels like it lingers for a while. I know we're watching this on slow speed, but this definitely feels like it lingers for a little bit too long on the screen with the shot of Goku Black just kind of standing there. It makes me wonder if they made it like that because they were kind of allocating for the card art. I feel like the card art is still on the screen longer than, you know, maybe that, like, dead space is there for, but I digress. I wonder if that's just something to do with the fact that they reuse the animation for the SSR in that regard, which, I mean, obviously they do that all the time. I don't mean reusing in a bad way in this case. But we obviously have the same sort of transition into Goku Black throwing the blast, and the same little thing with the blast flying forward, the same little animation of the dust cloud kicking up, right? Same animation of the Cybermen getting bonked there, right? Obviously, the only thing missing from this part of the animation is that beginning section, right? Where, can I pull this up here? Yeah. You can see in the little tiny box there, right? Obviously, this beginning section of Goku Black standing there with his hand, obviously, you know, kind of out in front of him. That shot is not included in the TUR. However, obviously, where the SSR would normally end is then where the TUR Super continues with the card art for Goku Black. And we then have the, oh gosh, I forget what this attack is called. I remembered what this was called at one point, but I do not remember. Comment section, let me know, because I do not remember off the top of my head. But yeah, I don't remember. I think I remember, but I don't know. Let me know in the comments. Either way, though, this is pretty cool. Obviously, with the energy blast, and this looks very reminiscent of the one that Goku Black used in the actual episode. It is cool that they have this little shot here, too, by the way, where they start off with it kind of in the palm of his hand, right? And then they cut to it obviously growing over his head. That's definitely a very good way to do it. Obviously giving you a little bit of perspective on how it's growing. And then with a little bit of movement here, right? Obviously this animation is nothing crazy. I mean, again, this is a pretty old essay. But what is cool about this is you have it over Goku Black's head. And then obviously he transitions into this. And I will say, for this animation, they actually do a very good job of making this feel a lot more lifelike. Fizz Trunks looking at you. With this, right? They actually have a little bit of a squish effect, which of course in the modern day, this would not look as good because obviously we have the little bit of minimal movements that they can do even on the tiniest of assets that make it look really good and not just transition between one pose to another every 5 seconds. I'm staring at the camera right now, even though you can't see it, Fizz Trunks. But with this guy, obviously back then they didn't have the technology or they weren't doing that as much. So, they actually have this little bit of a squish effect. You can see Goku Black's asset actually gets squished just a tiny little bit, right? And because of that, it makes it feel like Goku Black is actually readying up to kind of get into the pose that he then gets into right here, right? Where they kind of squish the asset a little bit more, right? To then throw the attack. And as it passes over him, that's when they transition the asset, right? You can see that obviously they don't really have one of him throwing it before it actually passes over him, right? It's just this asset of him holding it above him with it kind of moving. And then obviously after that, they have it where he's actually thrown it. So again, for at the time, making do with what they have and the, you know, the animation that they have on hand and what they can use, a very good job of making this feel a lot more animated. That little squish effect right there does a lot to kind of make this feel a lot more animated. So definitely a very good job there. Obviously the explosion with the blast and of course the iconic shot. I love this shot so much, bro. This is one of my like favorite essay shots in Dokkan. Even though it is so simple, right? Obviously the light from the blast reflecting on Goku, well, reflecting, kind of like, you know, showing on Goku Black. Obviously they even do a little bit to kind of animate a shadow that is kind of like, you know, going off of him. I don't know what term you would use for this, like pouring off of him, something like that, right? Like showing off of him, obviously with that little bit there, right? And you can even see they kind of have it on top of his hand where it's almost like his fingers there kind of casting a shadow over his body. Very, very well done. I love this shot. And not to mention you have a little bit of the light flickering from the blast here too, which is a very nice attention to detail. Obviously, this is such a super simple asset, right? With it's just the PNG of Goku Black. It's just like a nicer version of the card art version. with a little bit more shading and whatnot. But it still works really well, and obviously I feel like if this was a modern essay, maybe his hair would be waving and the Patar earring would be waving, but by golly, for when this came out, it looks really good. And then, of course, we have the next little explosion, which looks really good. This is super well animated, actually, with, like, the kind of rolling energy there, which looks really, really nice, actually. I've never noticed how nice that blast was. Very cool. And then, obviously, it transitions into the fire, which also looks really good. Very nice little fire animation. And it is cool how it transitions from the fire, right, kind of taking over the screen, to then obviously having Goku Black stand over the burned city, which is another fantastic shot, and his KO screen, obviously. I know this shot is a shot that a lot of people really, really like, including myself. And again, it's literally just a PNG of Goku Black standing there. It's literally just like the back version of, you know, him standing over the city. But by golly, if it don't look good, I don't know what does. Very, very nicely well done. Alright, so then we have Super Saiyan Rose Goku Black. And I'm actually pretty excited to take a look at this one, because this one's a lot better than I remember. So first of all, drink of water. Hydrate or dihydrate, chat, don't forget it. Obviously, with this, right, we have Goku Black with the scene where he's kind of charging forward with the Ki Blast. I will admit, this bit of the essay is a little bit of a miss for me. I think his face is just so ugly. I don't know what happened here. Like, I don't know why he looks like that. I don't know what they decided to do to my man's face. He just looks really weird. I don't know if it's because it's the quality of the asset as well. I mean, I'm sure that that definitely has to be part of it, right? Obviously, as you can see, he's flying forward here. You can see that this asset is meant to be seen from far away, because, oh my gosh, bro. I would cut myself on the jagged edges of that essay. But, obviously, the whole point is it's supposed to be flying away, right? And eventually, right, even though this is just a little bit of a zoom animation, I'm sure, again, if this was in the modern day, this would be animated a lot better than just the PNG sliding on the screen. They kind of did master this later on down the line, which is nice to see, right? Because now what they do is that they'll make the asset look a little bit less quality from far away, and then as it zooms in, it either changes to a high quality asset or it already is, so the quality just gets better as it zooms in towards the camera. So thankfully they did kind of learn from that, because it definitely looks a little bit stinky there. You can see here too, I mean, granted, this one maybe is a little bit different because obviously it's going to be smaller on the screen for longer, but this is another point where, right, they could have made the asset definitely more high quality, because you can see the pixels on that bad boy as he's kind of flying forward. But I will say I definitely like the angle of this shot, and not to mention, obviously, it does a little bit of that, like, kind of stretching, right, where it's sort of like a weird look, like Goku Black's proportions are obviously a little bit inaccurate, but the whole point is it's supposed to look like he's flying super fast right past the screen. So it does a good job of that, and obviously trying to, like, trick your eyes into giving that perspective, right? So then, oh man, this section of the essay is definitely a little bit lacking, right, with the whole Goku Black flip here. Again, I'm going to chalk this up to this being a little bit of an older animation, right? We transition from Goku Black flying forward to him kicking the enemy to kind of having it go off screen. And bro, it looks so funny because it's like taking a 2D image, right, and then making it 3D, right? And I don't mean in the way of like rotoscoping it like they do a lot in like STR Cooler's essay does that, and other modern Dokkan essays do that. It's literally like taking a piece of paper, right, and flipping it, right, and just kind of turning it so that eventually if you saw it, you know, it would just be like the thin edge of the paper that is in your peripheral. I'm sure that the reason why is because, again, since this is a pretty older essay, they were not cooking on that front yet. They didn't really have like the technology or the know-how at that point to kind of animate this a little bit better, you know, with like a proper turn animation. Granted, it is not on the screen for very long, but obviously looking at it like this, it just looks so silly. It looks like the animation program Scratch, if any of you are familiar with that. It reminds me heavily of that. Or when I see people make like custom Dokkan essays and they're kind of like just starting out, right? This is sometimes some of the things that I see with people taking the PNG and kind of like turning it like this. Obviously, it's also kind of an illusion to the eyes where it looks like that it's a piece of paper that's turning, because realistically, they're just stretching the PNG and squashing it to make it look like it has that effect. But I digress, it's still very funny. Then, obviously, it goes to a little bit of a nicer asset with Goku Black, obviously kicking the enemy. By the way, Am I tripping, or is that not how legs work? I think it only looks so weird because of Goku Black's baggy pants. It almost kind of makes it look like this is his knee, and obviously his foot is facing the other way, but I'm pretty sure it's just because of the baggy pants, and obviously the cloth would kind of be fluttering in the wind that way. But it definitely just does look a little bit silly. And then obviously they just kind of twist this asset into this one, right, of Goku Black, then bringing the enemy down, and they transition into his leg, then being down here, before obviously giving a small little pose change in between to then... What is this, bro? They twist him around in the sky, bro. My boy's going for a merry-go-round right here. Ooh, Goku Black! Then they have the other asset ghost in to then have the kick. I feel like that's so unnecessary. Like, why? You didn't do that for this entire sequence. Why do it now? I don't know. Maybe it's just to kind of give your eyes the illusion of it. But regardless, the other interesting thing about this is as it twists, right? It is the same animation, right? Except for the end part, just literally replayed. Because if we take a look, right, once we get from here, right, we can see that this is the funny paper, right, like looking asset, or at least close to it. And then this one is the one I was just talking about where it looks like his leg is kind of warped. So it's kind of funny that they sort of just loop the animation or just reuse some of the assets for this. But obviously, as it finally spins around, we get a little bit of better asset of him kind of flipping it around. They do a little bit of squashing here to obviously give it the effect like he's properly kicking him. This fade I feel like isn't as bad, but obviously, you know, they didn't really have the whole flip kind of animation down yet. Oh, that's an interesting transition. The enemy sprite covering Goku Black is what makes him disappear. That's really interesting. And then they transition into the enemy flying away. Now this is where this essay gets good. I did not realize how yucky that kick looks. Oh my gosh. Again, I'm not like going to be too hard on it because of course, you know, the whole thing is that obviously with this animation it is pretty old. All right. So then obviously we have the animation of the enemy flying against the building, and we have the Ki Blast smashing into the building, which is a cool little like teaser to then having Goku Black fly towards the screen, which looks great. Even though this is just a solid PNG, the blasts look really, really good and look very anime accurate as well. I love the background kind of zoom in there too. And we obviously have the blast making contact with the building as the enemy is flying away. That all looks very good. The smoke and dust, I will say I was pretty impressed with this section when I first saw this essay. How the dust moves in this particular section right here looks so good. It looks super like 3D almost. It looks really, really nicely animated. And obviously the asset kind of breaking through the clouds. It is the same asset from before because it is that little bit of a stinky faced Goku Black asset. But obviously it's just kind of used to then zoom up. This shot I'm sure would be done so much better if this was a bit of a modern essay. And you can actually see that they tried to animate this with it going through the sprite. It looks a little bit janky, but they do kind of have it only on screen for a couple seconds before the dust cloud kind of covers it, with obviously the enemy getting dragged up the building by Goku Black having them stabbed into the building. And then of course this is a nice little bit of perspective where they don't have to animate the actual characters being there, and obviously having them kind of, you know, fly up the building until they crash into the top, with then the same animation playing for the Cybermen and obviously tossing them to the side. Now the dust looks good there, the air cloud looks good. This is the part where they cook, ladies and gentlemen. This is the part where they cook. We have the Goku Black Kamehameha here. I forget what the actual name of this thing is. It might just be called Black Kamehameha. I don't remember. But obviously we have the Ki Sword zoom around Goku Black with that aura. Oh! Dude, I remember the first time I watched that, and I wasn't even as crazy about like being analytical about Dokkan animations and stuff like that back then, right? Not only is this a cool little implication of the teleporting in as well, but the key on Goku Black's hand obviously being like the little bit of the key blade, right? Shout out to Sora. With this, right, kind of going into his hand and then surrounding his body like this, right? And then not only that, having the middle begin to glow for that like rose aura. He almost looks 3D here, if I'm being honest with you. Like once it gets to this color scheme, this asset kind of looks 3D, which is so weird. But I think it's just the shading that kind of gives it that effect. But the aura looks so nice, dude. Even when he has that little bit of a transition, from how far away it is, it just always impressed me how good this aura looked in this section. Oh my gosh. So we do have a little bit of a funky little asset change here, but again, keep in mind, this is the time that this came out. So we have a little bit of a fade here as Goku Black kind of leans down to here, right? And then you can see they kind of just stretch him again, or I guess squish him in this case, right? Then be leaning down for the Kamehameha. I'm sure if this essay was redone for today, this would definitely look a little bit better with him moving down. Hopefully they wouldn't just transition between the poses like they like to do. Trunks. But obviously, right, this still looks pretty good. And not to mention then obviously having the Kamehameha form in his hand, which looks amazing with the little bit of the effects there, right? That's really cool. And then they cut to this very cool close-up shot of Goku Black here. I always really like this asset. The pink colors on the screen is just so awesome. The aura looks great. The Kamehameha forming and growing in his hands looks great too. And this is a pretty cool transition, actually. Having when the cut-in, right, kind of goes closer to the screen, right, it kind of distracts you from the fact that they're jump cutting to the next scene, which is a really good way to do that. And then obviously they have Goku Black zoomed in, which is also another very nice looking Goku Black asset with the little bit of the light beams from the Kamehameha obviously showing across the screen, right? And that looks really good. This is so well done for when this came out, dude. Holy cow. So obviously it is just a PNG, right, of Goku Black. Like, it's not like animated in terms of him himself, right? Even his hair and his earring isn't really moving that much, but it is a very nice way that they do this by panning down, right? By the way, his hair there kind of looks like Ultra Instinct hair, funny enough. But obviously panning down, right, to then showing the Kamehameha in his hands, which looks really good again. The lighting effects on this look great. The way that the light shows onto his hands look fantastic. And then a very nice transition, right? Obviously kind of distracting your eyes from the fact that this is going to be a transition, right? They cut from this shot to having the hands shown forward, or thrown forward, I guess would be the better way to, you know, describe it. But your eyes are so focused on the pink key that you don't really notice that that's the case. And then obviously they throw the Kamehameha forward, and you can see that little Goku Black asset there that obviously then, you know, kind of zooms out a little bit with the pink background, and obviously looks a lot better when it's far away. The Kamehameha looks nice here, right? And then obviously, as this shot goes away, we have a really cool animated Kamehameha, actually, with the way that this kind of flies at the enemy. I really like the way that it kind of, like, warps and moves in this little small section of animation here as it's flying towards the sprite. That looks really good. The lighting too, and obviously the final explosion effect looks awesome. This is also a great KO screen too, with obviously not only just the explosion looking really nice, but Goku Black standing there too. A little bit of shadow on him as well, which is nice that they even bothered to implement that, because, you know, that could have definitely just been forgotten. But that's a cool little attention to detail, and I love the way that the smoke also billows up with the animation with the key rather, as it kind of like is flowing up towards the sky there, or I guess just up to the top of the dome would be the better way to describe it, right? Definitely very, very well done on that animation there. I did just realize there is one thing missing from this animation. The transformation animation is not included in this video, so let's look at that real quick. Ironically enough, I think Dokkan World back then must have realized that he forgot that animation in the video, because the transformation animation is literally the first thing in this video that was at the end of the just set of animation videos in the 100% showcase of the boys. So I'm sure he was just like, oops, I forgot the transformation. So this is the transformation animation. Obviously we have Goku Black standing there. This one is very reminiscent of Goku and Frieza, right? This one reminds me a lot in terms of like the angle and the perspective and everything of that, of transforming Goku and Frieza with all their different forms, which makes sense because obviously it's a lot more simpler to do transformations like that. But it's cool because obviously during this time we were obviously getting, you know, different transforming characters and stuff like that, so it kind of fit with the theme of that, right? We have the cut-in of the base form of Goku Black's face, which, by the way, this is not... I don't even think this is the SSR art, if I'm remembering that correctly. Let's take a look at the SSR art. I don't think... Is that the SSR art's face? It looks similar. I don't even think it's exactly the same. I always thought that that was really interesting, though, that they made some more unique assets for this guy, because a lot of the time back then, when they did these transformation animations, a lot of the time, they just kind of like used the card art for different things, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but obviously when this pops up on the screen, we have a little bit of a different Goku Black asset in the background with him obviously screaming up to the sky. Zoom in on that with the purple and pink effects on the screen, as well as a little bit of lightning there, which looks really, really good, right? Obviously, very simple animation for the time. This is super cool, too, with obviously panning back out with the Goku Black aura around him, right? A little bit of electricity, the aura billowing up to the sky, and the light overtaking everything on the screen before Rose. It looks so cool, dude. Obviously, this particular shot here, I mean, it's just a reference to the anime, so it's kind of silly to say this, I suppose. But, of course, this is when Goku Black first transforms and they pan up to him. But it's also AGL Rose's accessory art, the GOAT. If you're an OG Dokkan fan, you recognize it. But we have the really cool little bits of, like, the sparkles, or whatever you would want to call them, the kind of glitter around Goku Black. The aura looks really cool here, even though the aura isn't, like, animated for this section, which is kind of interesting because, obviously, you know, not only is this aura a lot more simple, but we saw the aura in the super attack that was animated super well. It's interesting that they didn't, you know, like, take that and then implement it here for this section. It is literally just, like, a static PNG of Goku Black's aura, where they try and kind of mask it with a little bit of the sparkles there. But this is a really cool transition because, honestly, I feel like they didn't even need that in the middle. They could have just gone to this shot, right, which still looks pretty cool. Obviously, the transformed asset with a little bit of the sparkles there in the Rose aura, that's a little bit more of that generic version. But it's still kind of funny to me that, like, they included that middle bit because they didn't even need to. They could have just done that part and it still would have been pretty cool. But this just makes this animation ascend to a whole nother level and really made it feel impactful at the time, for sure. With just having that little extra bit in there. It's only there for a couple seconds, but by golly, does it make a difference. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for today's animation analysis video. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I definitely enjoyed taking a look at these older Dokkan essays. It's always nice going back and seeing what they did in the past and how it reflects to the future, as well as some of the things that they ended up improving on over the history of the game, and not to mention obviously getting some ideas for what new potential units could look like if they decide to remake some of these essays, or if they decide to, you know, take stuff from them and whatnot. It's always really cool to go back and see, and to see as well, you know, how good of a job that they were doing way back when, you know, when even we didn't even really have that high of an expectation for the animations. They were still cooking in a lot of regards, especially for this guy. I remember when he initially came out, I was very blown away by the animations, right? I feel like Metal Cooler was really good, but this guy almost took it to like a whole nother level in a lot of aspects that he had going for him. So, Goku Black, my boy, your EZA may be stinky, but at least your animations are not. You love to see it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, don't forget to like and subscribe as well. If you enjoy these animations too, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What is your favorite animation out of all of these? And I suppose at this point, right, considering that Int Goku Black, the LR, the Rose version, is going to be getting a EZA coming up here in this celebration, I guess I may as well do an animation analysis video on him too. So look forward to that video. Hopefully I haven't done one yet. I kind of have a feeling like I have, but oh well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Dokkan Assets out. Peace.